I'm KALILAH Reynolds, and welcome to Taking Stock. We're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. So come on, let's get this money. First up, why are global oil prices going down but Petrojam's cost remains the same? And should the government remove the special consumption tax SCT on fuel? We'll talk to Energy Minister Fayval Williams. And of course, the analysts weigh in on the latest stock market developments. Jamaica's run of 19 consecutive quarters of growth has come to a halt. We'll discuss. But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. Jamaica's growth streak has been broken. After 19 consecutive quarters, economic growth for the fourth quarter of 2019 was flat, 0%. In fact, there was a slight decline. The economy earned about $73 million, or $500,000 less than the same period the year before. The services industries grew by 1.2%, but the goods-producing industries declined by 3.7%. This includes mining and quarrying, which fell by 40%, and construction down nearly 2% due to a reduction in civil engineering, such as roadworks. Overall, preliminary estimates show the economy grew 0.9% for the calendar year 2019. Meanwhile, the economic outlook continues to be blurred by uncertainty from the impact of COVID-19. As more cases and related deaths continue to be recorded locally, the government has imposed a nightly curfew for 1 week as part of its strategy to stop the spread. Borders are also being kept closed to incoming passenger traffic for 2 more weeks. In related news, applications for the government's CARE program will open on April 9. The program will see selected individuals and businesses impacted by COVID-19 receiving cash grants. The government is also spending $240 million to buy excess produce from affected farmers. And over in the tourism industry, a task force is being established to look at rebuilding the sector after the pandemic has passed. Over in the U.S., close to 10 million people have now filed for unemployment benefits as a result of the devastating economic impact of COVID-19. 6.5 million persons filed last week alone. The Federal Labor Department says a new record number of people sought benefits after losing their jobs in the week ending March 27. The U.S. now faces the sharpest rise in unemployment in its history, with more people filing for unemployment in the last 2 weeks than in the last 10 months. In other news, the reduction in general consumption tax GCT to 15% took effect on April 1. However, some Jamaicans have been complaining that some businesses have yet to implement the lower rate. And ratings agency Fitch has downgraded Digicel Group bonds to C after the telecommunications company announced a halt in interest payments to bondholders for 30 days. Digicel defended its move as an allowed measure, saying the delay comes in the context of ongoing negotiations with certain bondholders. The interest payments that were due on March 30 affected the 2022 bond, which pays annual interest of 8.25% for Digicel Group 1 and Digicel Group 2. Another interest payment that was set for April 1 for notes due in 2024 at 9.125% for Digicel Group 2 was also delayed. Fitch says its C rating indicates a default-like process in which Digicel has entered into a grace period following non-payment of a material financial obligation. Last November, the rating agency had said it expected Digicel to require refinancing in order to sustain its debt payments. $1.3 billion of those notes are due to mature in April 2021. What's Hot was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. And when we come back, oil prices have plunged globally since the spread of COVID-19. So why haven't Petrojam's prices fallen accordingly? We'll discuss. This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agent. Insurance made easy. Welcome back to Taking Stock. Well, the oil market has been on a rapid decline, hitting a 20-year low last week of just $20 a barrel. But gas prices in Jamaica haven't come down nearly as significantly. Last week, Petrojam finally slashed prices by $4.50 a liter. But is it enough? Let's take stock. This graph shows Petrojam's weekly gas prices versus world oil prices over the last 9 months. The blue and orange lines are Petrojam's prices for 87 and 90 gasoline, while the red line shows prices for West Texas Intermediate WTI crude oil, which is the standard Petrojam purchases for refining into gasoline and other petroleum products. Even with last week's $4.50 reduction, local gas prices are still a far way from catching up with the dramatic decline on the world market. World oil prices have been hard hit by a feud between Saudi Arabia and Russia. WTI standard hit a low of just $20.31 a barrel on April 1 before rebounding to about $28 on Friday following news that U.S. President Donald Trump was brokering a truce. Then there's the issue of taxation. As of February 27, nearly $50 of Petrojam's ex-refinery price was attributed to taxation. That's according to a breakdown on their website. There's a special consumption tax of $37.78 on each liter, plus another 10% ad valorem SCT, which adds nearly $12 more to the final price. If the taxes were removed, gasoline would be about $50 a liter cheaper. But it would cost the government billions of dollars. The government is estimating to collect some $83 billion in SCT in the 2020-21 financial year. However, it's unclear exactly how much of that will come from fuel, since other items also attract SCT. I'm joined now by Science, Energy and Technology Minister Fayval Williams.
The main issue that I wanted to talk about today, although we have some other issues to discuss as well, is this issue of gas prices. You would have seen the graph that my producer sent to you showing where world oil prices have been plummeting. In fact, they've hit a 20-year low, but gas prices put up by Petrojam and invariably at the pumps as well remained pretty constant, even though the world oil prices have been plummeting. Why is that?
Well, wow, it's a long history, KALILAH. The pricing formula that Petrojam calculates, believe it or not, it's been in existence since about 1988. And as you rightly point out, it favors stability over volatility. And if you look back at the history of prices at Petrojam, when prices are rising, our prices nationally don't rise as fast. And similarly, when they're going down, our prices here don't go down as fast. And it's the smoothing that happens in the pricing formula that results in that. So every time we get an inflection point like now, questions are raised. And then, you know, when the environment changes, people go back to business as normal. What we have done in the last several months, we've asked the IMF, the country resident rep who is here, to help us by providing technical analysis to take a look at the pricing formula to see if it still serves our needs. The IMF has done a lot of work looking at pricing formulas in a lot of different countries across the world, and so they come with knowledge of different pricing formulas. So they are still working on it. We've gotten some preliminary assessment from them already, but the final has not been done yet. We hope that we'll be able to do that in the next month to help us understand the pricing formula, because it has in it 24 different variables. Right? They could be added or subtracted.
So naturally, this favors us in times when the oil prices are high. This emphasis on stability. When oil prices are high, it would favor us as consumers and as a nation. But when the prices dip to where they are like now, we're at a disadvantage. So you're considering a review of this pricing formula, you're saying?
We are, and if you recall, coming out of the Petrojam review that was done last year, that was one of the recommendations, to take a look at the pricing formula, and also to look to see if we do not need to have an independent entity calculate the pricing formula. And so what I've done since I went to the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology has been to include other persons in the pricing meeting. The pricing meetings happen once every week on Wednesdays, and then they make the announcement, I believe, the next day. So I've included a representative from the ministry. There's a representative from the Ministry of Finance. When I say the ministry, meaning the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. There's also a representative on the pricing committee from the Ministry of Finance, and one from the OUR. And the thinking there was to open up the pricing formula to other than Petrojam persons, so that especially the OUR, Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, so we begin to build the knowledge about the pricing formula. So when we take a decision, either way, either we decide to have it remain at Petrojam or move to the OUR, it will be with full knowledge in terms of the implications of that.
You know, it's interesting that you explained that this is intentional, because I thought you were going to come and say that there's just a lag, that there's a few weeks delay between the time when, or maybe Petrojam has some inventory, some reserves, and they need to use that up that was bought at the old price before we can see a difference in the new price.
Well, that happens too. I mean, as part of the calculation that happens, because at any point in time they buy inventory. Their inventory is about 2 weeks, so prices change either way, in that they may see a loss or a profit on their inventory. That's part of the pricing formula, and that's what I'm saying. It's worth a review, you know, to see if it's still serving our purpose.
Okay, so Minister, at what point though, even though the pricing mechanism favors stability, at some point in time, the prices will come down or go up to reflect what's happening on the world oil market? And I do notice that last week, for example, Petrojam did reduce gas prices by $4 a liter.
So there's a band in which prices will fluctuate. And generally they stay within the band. It's plus or minus $3. To go by $4 meant that they went outside of the band. Once in a while this happens, depending on how dramatic the price is, and we're in dramatic, you know, price decline days. So I think it was them trying to reflect at least some amount of the price decline.
I find it interesting that that steep price decline came right as we started raising these questions on social media. All of a sudden, Petrojam reduces the prices. I wonder if we had anything to do with that, raising the comments on social media.
I don't know, but I mean, we all live in Jamaica together. We are listening to the same news. You know, I can't answer that question.
Okay, so there's another issue as it relates to fuel prices that has come up recently, and that's the SCT on fuel. Both the opposition and JPS have called for the government to remove the SCT on fuel in this difficult time so that consumers can have a little bit of an ease. Is that something that's practical for the government to do right now?
KALILAH, to be straightforward with you, the JPS did write us a letter to the ministry, to my ministry, and to the Minister of Finance as well. We were copied on the letter. And I had a discussion with the Minister of Finance. And at this point in time, in the context of having done a $25 billion stimulus package already, in which GCT on all the items that have GCT at 16.5%, it was reduced to 15% starting April 1st. So there's a benefit to consumers in their electricity bill that they will see reflected in the GCT. Additionally, I don't know if Jamaicans are aware of this, but 46% of JPS's residential customers who consume less than 150 kilowatt hours, they do not pay GCT on their electric bill. So that has been something that the government decided a few years ago. So already the government is, looking and ensuring that the vulnerable in the society, those who consume less than 150 kilowatt hours, that they do not pay GCT on their bills. And just to give you a sense for what that means, because when you talk kilowatt hours, people don't necessarily know what it means. It's someone who has a small fridge in their house, a small TV, they may have a fan, they may have may use their iron, and they have lights in their home. So it's, they're not a huge consumer of electricity, but they're also a very conscious consumer of electricity. They don't waste electricity. They don't leave the lights on. They don't leave their fan on. They don't leave their TV on. So they're able to keep their bill at that level. And they know that if they do that, their bill will be $5,000 a month, and they can live with $5,000 a month. So they try to keep within that limit. There's no GCT there. Then for the others, the remaining 54%, they also have that benefit on the first 150 kilowatt hours. They do not pay any GCT. Beyond 150, yes, you pay GCT, and now you're going to be paying it at 15% rather than 16.5%. So at this time, that call from JPS and the opposition is not supported by government.
Remind me how much the SCT is. I think it was $7 a liter or something like that.
On fuel?
On fuel, yes.
And about $37 per liter.
Oh, wow.
Different prices depending on what the fuel is. So ultra low sulfur diesel is 36.
That's a significant portion of the cost of fuel. Right. No, I remember this. The $7 is what it was increased by. The last time it was increased, so that, which brought it to 30 something. Yes, but that's a significant cost. So it would cost the government quite a bit to remove that from fuel.
Right, and so in this context in which you have such a significant reduction in the GCT already, and it's not being made up by putting tax on other things. You have a significant stimulus already in the economy for which the government has to pay. And so I'm sure when they look at the Balancing Act, the government still has to get some revenues from somewhere. And so at this point in time, given one, the fact that 46% of residential customers do not pay GCT, the 54% that do, they also get the GCT, no GCT on the first 150 kilowatt hours. GCT has been reduced overall for all of us in terms of the items we buy, as well as on our electricity bill. So that, that particular recommendation is not supported at this point in time.
It occurs to me that the press releases that Petrojam sends out, so still on the pricing issue, the press releases that Petrojam sends out every week when they announce their price increases or decreases or whatever's happening with the price that week, it always says at the end that the prices are reflective of world oil prices or something to that effect. I forget the specific wording. So isn't it disingenuous for them to say that then, if that's not exactly what's going on, if it's a different mechanism that reflects stability?
No. I would say because their starting point is world oil prices. If they're calculating the price on crude, they would start with the WTI, the West Texas Intermediate, right? So whatever that level is that's published, that's where they start. But then, there's the addition and subtraction of these 24 variables to get to that price that Petrojam publishes on a Thursday. The price Petrojam publishes is a price to the marketing companies. Right? The marketing companies then add their transportation cost, their margin, and sells that to the retailers. The retailers then put their margin on that and then sells it to the consumer. So it does reflect it, but because of all the other add-ons, by the time it gets to the consumer, it's way more than they're seeing on the world market.
So let's come to the telecoms issue now, Minister, because many of us are working from home now. I see you appear to be at home yourself. Yeah, we're relying on the technology to get us through this time as we have to enforce self-isolation. We're going to need major expansion in our telecoms capacity if this is to continue for a prolonged period. And also after the recovery, as more businesses realize work from home is possible. What are the plans and what are the discussions with the telecoms providers in that regard?
Well, KALILAH, you're absolutely correct. And it didn't take COVID to have us understand that. We all, in our own usage of the telecommunications infrastructure, well before COVID, we were talking about the inadequacy of the system that exists. A number of reasons. One is the shift in what we're using now. It's more data versus voice. Mm-hmm. And so the networks need more investment in order to be able to cope adequately with our demand for videos and all the data that we're sending. And in my estimation, they've lagged in terms of that investment. So we work closely with the OUR. Right now we are looking at making changes in terms of the quality of service regulation, making it more of a requirement for the telecom providers to make the kind of capital investment that they should. Having said that, though, it does take time to get the infrastructure in place to serve the customers and to extend the network so that it serves all of Jamaica. Right now, that is not the case. You and I know that there are rural areas in Jamaica where there's spotty or no internet. Yeah. Yes.
And even in urban areas, even in town, even before COVID as well, it was inadequate. It's frustrating when you're trying to finish your work and your internet just all of a sudden goes. There have been complaints that internet has been down sometimes for days in some areas. And
I know recently Flow did have an outage for about 3 or so hours of the internet service, but they got it back up and it seems to be working right now. Within this period that we're in, the COVID period here, what the providers are saying is that they're seeing some upwards of 30% increase on their peak traffic. So they're really seeing increased demand for which they have to try to satisfy. What the government has done recently, I don't know that it's fully implemented yet, but I know within the last week or so, on the recommendation of the Spectrum Management Authority to the ministry, the government made available some additional emergency spectrum for the period of time that we're going through COVID, so that the telecom providers would have more spectrum and be able to manage better their connectivity.
At a cost or no?
We've asked the finance ministry to waive the fee and they've agreed to waive the fee.
I saw an interesting question on Twitter and it came from Mark Gale, who was asking about Digicel and Digicel's financial problems. Does it concern you as the minister that Digicel has been going through these well publicized financial issues? And has the government considered what the fallout may be should Digicel declare bankruptcy?
Of course, it would concern us if any provider, if the financial status of any provider is not as strong as it could be. And we've had conversations with Digicel at a very high level to have them explain to us what their plans are, what's the runway that they have in terms of being able to refinance the debt that they have on their books and so forth and so on. Interestingly, it was only today that I saw a letter from them, but which I haven't fully digested yet, in terms of some financing efforts that they're pursuing. And so, yes, we are concerned, but I do know that for the Jamaican market, should in case a provider falls on hard times, I'm sure that there will be another provider that would want to come in and take their space. Right now, there are others who are looking at entering the market as well because they understand the growth in terms of data that's happening in this market. But it's
not that easy to just jump into the Jamaican market, though. You all would have to auction off another telecoms license. Is that something on the table?
Well, for new entrants coming in,
yes,
right, they have to go through a process. They have to go through the regulatory process in terms of applying for their license, applying for spectrum, and so on. And there's a cost involved with that process.
But the government has to open it up to another provider. Isn't that how it works?
Right, it's a competitive environment. And if you would like to enter Jamaica, you have to put forward your plans. You have to say how it is that you're going to be able to finance the rollout of your network. You have to give a detailed diagram of your network. You have to be able to provide your source of financing for it and all of that. So it's there is a high hurdle to get into the sector.
Are you at the point yet where you'll be making that call for a potential third applicant to come in?
We don't have to make the call, KALILAH, because it's a competitive market, meaning you could wake up tomorrow and decide you want to be a telecom carrier, right? As long as you meet the requirements as laid out by the OUR and the spectrum in terms of your finances, your ability to manage a network. They'll look at the talent that you're bringing to the table and so forth. Yeah, you could. It's a competitive market for persons to enter.
Well, thanks for joining me, Minister. I appreciate it.
KALILAH.
Well, when we come back, I've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by. This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy. Time now for your market recap, brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments. The Jamaica Stock Exchange rallied last week with the combined index gaining nearly 8% after weeks of steep declines. 97 stocks traded across both the main and junior markets of the JSE for the week ending Friday, April 3, 2020. 75 advanced, while 16 declined and 6 traded firm. 219 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, totaling $1.3 billion. Trans-Jamaican Highway traded the most, with 62 million shares changing hands. The stock gained 6 cents to open this week at $1.36. Mailpack Group traded the second highest, taking up 16% of market volume. The stock closed last week at $1.63. And Wigton Wind Farm rounds out the volume leaders, with people buying and selling nearly 23 million shares in the company. Wigton gained 4 cents to close at 67 cents. Turning to the top advancers now, and there were some spectacular gains, led by Everything Fresh, which jumped 67% to close the week at 87 cents. Select M climbed back up by 54% to close at 86 cents. And Key Insurance Company gained 50% as executives from its new owner, Grace Kennedy, stepped into key roles. Key Insurance ended the week at $3. On the losing side now, JMMB Group 7% VR JMD CR preference shares fell nearly 15% to close the week at $1.70. Iron Rock Insurance also took a hit, down 13% to end last week at $3, and Cargo Handlers fell nearly 8%, down to $5.53. Market Recap was brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth. Think Sagicor Investments. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Proven Wealth and Jamaica Money Market Brokers. Welcome back to Taking Stock. I've got a team of analysts to examine the week in business. We're joined by Group Sovereign Research Analyst at JMMB, Theodore Mitchell, Investment Analyst at Proven Wealth, Julian Morrison, and Young Investor at the University of the West Indies, Mona, David Rose.
All right, it's good to have you guys on this week. We're all getting accustomed to the technology, but this is the new way of doing things now. Theodore, let's start with you. Anything stood out to you on the market in the past week?
Well, what has been observed is that the market has been on a downward trend. Saw towards the end of the month where it is that there was some upward movement in some stocks, reflecting end of quarter activity in the main.
Anything in particular that really jumps out?
Nothing of significance to report on.
Julian, I know that things have been, like Theodore was just saying, the market has been on a downward trend for the past, several months, probably about 3-4 months now. But in the past week, there's been a little bit of an improvement. What do you make of it?
Well, I'm not certain. But what comes to mind is that sometimes persons might participate in the market in a month-end period when they have additional disposable income. People might get quarterly bonuses or whatever the case may be. So you might have smaller retail investors that have started to rebalance their portfolios because they have additional cash right now. So that's what I think right now. But I'm still watching what's going on because interesting times ahead. We're seeing where there might be a recovery in sentiment, but fundamentals are going in the opposite direction. Seeing where the economy is starting to take a different turn. So it's early days yet.
Absolutely. David, anything caught your attention?
Well, considering that it was almost the end of quarter, end of financial year, you started to have insider trades happening. So you had Sagicor, Lasco Financial, and several other companies where insider parties are connected. Persons in the company were buying up the company's stock before the end of the financial year. So on the end of the month, March 31, there was a significant increase in several companies, about probably 5 or 6 at 20% increases just in that one day before the quarter finished. So that was pretty interesting. And even today on the market, around 12 o'clock, a top 10 shareholder from Mailpack actually disposed about 20 million units worth of the company at $1.60.
Wow.
So that's about $30 million plus just for Mailpack went onto the market and added more liquidity. And within 20-25 minutes, it was all gone.
Wow. Mailpack is one of those that I've definitely been watching. I noticed since the news came out on Wednesday that their share price went, to almost $2 after falling to about $1.25. News came out on Wednesday that their volumes, their sales were way up because of this new delivery service that they're offering, the home delivery, and how many more people are demanding that service, and so people are really gravitating towards Mailpack. I didn't know that shareholder disposed of some
top 10 shareholder. I'm not sure exactly which one, but only 8 shareholders could have disposed that volume of shares.
Wow.
So I posted it on Twitter, so you can check later. But I was surprised, 20 million units just on there, and they were just going very fast.
And it just gone. Snapped
and the
right
thing
up.
is, Mailpack is the only company I can say is in a greater position to take advantage of this transitionary period our economy is going through. Considering other companies are literally in a frozen mode or literally scaling down right now. So Meal Pack is scaling up while everybody else is taking the opposite direction. So
Yeah.
that's just interesting considering everybody is, as Julian said, taking sentiments to other companies, which right now in the short term have no significant value considering operations are basically being halted.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that Quick Plate also, and Quick Plate is not a listed company, as you guys know. Quick Plate also launched a similar type of service this week, so give Mealpack some competition there in terms of the local grocery deliveries. That was interesting.
That's good for everybody.
Yeah, it's good for them. Let's come to some other developments in the economy now, Theodore. We would have been observing the economic growth being stagnant for the past quarter. When I say the past quarter, I mean the one that was October to December, 0% growth for the first time in 19 consecutive quarters. We're now reflecting flat growth. What do you make of that, Theodore?
That was due mainly to reduction in bauxite. The sector accounts for 2.6% of the economy, and for that particular quarter, output in the sector declined by 40%. So essentially, that accounts for roughly 1% overall with respect to overall economic growth, that is decline. Then there was also decline in the construction sector, that was a further 0.2%. So those two developments, or rather the developments in those two sectors, had a significant impact in terms of overall economic activity. When you look at all the other sectors, they are more or less in line with what you have seen over the last couple of quarters, but as noted, activities in those particular two sectors had a significant impact, and hence we saw where it is that growth was 0% as opposed to positive that we have seen over 19 quarters prior.
Yeah, and Julian, the thing is that this data is pre-COVID. This is for October to December. We weren't suffering as we were now, the economy, yet from COVID-19. So what does that spell for the present quarter and the coming quarter?
Separate and apart from the factors that are COVID specific, it would mean that we were less likely to outperform the previous year because of what Theodore just mentioned. So the fact that we still haven't had any significant changes now relative to prior quarter in regards to bauxite coming back online. Bauxite is still offline as far as I know.
Yeah.
So it means that in addition to that slowing, the COVID specific factors like the shut-ins, the fall off in consumer activity, reduction in foot traffic, we would see a further compounding of economic slowing, so to speak. So it means that going off of that, we're likely to contract. So we're likely to actually see negative growth, just looking at it from a bird's eye view.
Yeah, David, you think it's likely to be an actual economic recession that is coming? Because we have the quarter of flat growth, and then this quarter is very likely to be negative growth, the one that just ended in March, and then April again, not looking too positive.
Well, as someone said earlier in the week and even over the last couple of weeks, quarter two is basically dead, considering the whole situation, because even if a vaccine was to be discovered overnight or tomorrow, the sectors and even overall consumption will take a while to go back up. Quarter one, as he said, might potentially see negative growth, depending on how things pan out, because the first case was around March 10, and economic activity was steadily around that point, booming or in a positive trajectory. So it came around the near ending of the winter tourist season, and other operations were still there, but otherwise, quarter one is still potential for negative growth, but we still have to wait and see probably around June to see what actually panned out there in this quarter. Because I said, it was there at the ending of the first quarter where you could see we potentially might see a negative growth from everything shutting down, but most of the courts already played out, so it's still very difficult to analyze.
Well, we started seeing the negative effects here in Jamaica in early March, at least mid-March. When did schools close? I don't remember exactly.
They closed March 13.
March 13, mid-March.
Yeah, March 12
mid-March. So
specifically.
transportation would have been affected, which means that the gas prices, Petrojam would have been affected. Even before that, we would have had the tourism industry affected.
Manufacturers and businesses.
Manufacturers and
China
businesses.
slowed down.
Right. So we already, I said this quarter that just passed, gone, and then the coming quarter just as bad, if not worse. Theodore, I know you've been tracking. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may chime in here, it's interesting to note that in Q1 2019, the mining and quarrying sector expanded by 11%. And we're expecting that, we're expecting a contraction in Q1, as you know, Alpart is offline. Petrojam contributes significantly to the manufacturing sector. And we have seen in March, where it is that oil prices have actually fallen off by up about 60%. So that is going to have a deleterious impact in terms of output in the manufacturing sector. And, we're expecting contraction in tourism somewhat. So, when you add up what is likely to come in terms of you're looking at bauxite, manufacturing, and tourism, as well as, some of the other sectors, construction, etc., it's highly probable that you will have negative growth in Q1. And beyond that, given that you are looking now at, post-COVID specifics, we're anticipating even a lower growth going forward. I suppose it is that everything is dependent on, whether it is that a cure is found, or it is that, we can contain the spread of the disease. But, given the trajectory that we're seeing currently, you're likely to encounter, deep contraction going forward, at least for the next 3 quarters.
Yeah, 3 quarters. Wow. So pretty much the rest of the year, or almost the entire rest of the year.
For sure. I don't think that's unreasonable, an unreasonable call, because of the domino effects that Theodore would have mentioned. Because what we'd realize is that some persons are being laid off in certain industries, and then there are other industries that are considering layoffs. Everything isn't happening at the same time. It would happen in a staggered way. Each sector would be slowing down at different rates, and by the end of the month, we would have seen more sectors moving slowly.
Theodore, coming back to a point that you were making just now, you're telling us about Petrojam and the impact that the lower oil prices are likely to have on their operations, because they contribute heavily to the country's manufacturing sector and the growth or decline in that sector. We're looking at far fewer people traveling because everybody's staying at home. Schools are closed. Nobody taking the taxis, nobody taking the buses. So that means that there's going to be much less demand for fuel, or has been much less demand for fuel in the past month, and will continue to be until this situation rectifies itself. But I know you've also been tracking, Theodore, this issue of the international oil prices versus our local gasoline prices, which is the topic of today's show. Actually, I just interviewed the Minister of Energy, Fayval Williams, on the same thing. Unfortunately, you guys wouldn't have been privy to that interview, and you'll get to see it when the rest of the country sees it. But what are your thoughts on that whole matter, the discrepancy between the international oil prices and our local prices?
I suppose that is the sort of issue you have when you somewhat have a monopoly, so to speak. If my memory serves me correctly, Petrojam accounts for upwards of 70% of the fuel which is utilized locally. And the other players in the market watch what Petrojam is doing to determine their prices. Notably, they utilize the West Texas intermediary prices to determine local prices. And as noted, we have seen where prices are falling off by 60% relative to March. However, local prices have creeped down. I saw recently, in fact, last Thursday, where it is that oil prices at the pump declined by around $3.50, which is paltry. Thanks for the correction, but notwithstanding, on a relative basis, it's not the same as you have seen the decline in crude prices. And, this is one of the problems that, not just myself, but the wider Jamaica has with Petrojam and its pricing mechanism. Whenever it is that price goes up at an exponential rate, we see where it is that prices at the pump adjust accordingly. However, when it is that, prices are on downward path, we don't see them, doing the same. And in another life, I wear another cap, in the sense that the fiscal very much is highly dependent on oil prices. There is an ad valorem component and there's a specific component. And if indeed oil prices fall, on the local scene to a certain level, it can have a deleterious impact in terms of the government's revenue. So I suppose, the pricing mechanism may be structured in such a way as to preserve the fiscal, because given what is happening, we're expecting, significant fallout in general consumption tax and some of the other tax-based, tax from corporates, etc. So this may be one way of preserving revenue, tax and oil between quote unquote a syntax. I suppose it is that there's a reluctance to adjust the pricing because, of the need to maintain the revenue structure of the government.
That's an interesting point. The reason or the rationale that the minister gave to me a short while ago is that the price is set to maintain stability over time, so that when we have peaks, when oil prices peak, our price doesn't necessarily jump the same way or as fast as the world oil prices do. But I see you smiling about that. Why?
If you may recall, we have had several deliberations from individuals at Petrojam indicating that prices are set based on West Texas prices. Right. So, if that is so, one would think that once there is adjustment in West Texas prices, you will adjust accordingly. So if prices are moving, indeed. And we have observed, and my fellow analyst can correct me if I'm wrong, where in the past when oil prices were going up, we saw where it is that they adjust, where it is that there was movement in West Texas prices. So
what's interesting? What's interesting, Theodore? Usually when Petrojam sends out these press releases, they will have at the end that the price is reflective of, like you said, world oil prices. I checked the last press release that they sent and it didn't say that at the bottom. I don't know how long it's been since they've removed that line, but it used to say that. It used to say that at the end of each press release that comes out on a Wednesday for Thursday prices.
Julian, do you observe that?
Well, I am in agreement in that prices are quote unquote sticky downward, meaning that it's harder for them to go down than for them to go up. But as to the reason, I'm not so clear. I'm really not clear. This is just educational, so I'm not certain as to the reason. But I was thinking that one side of it could be because of forward contracts. So it could be a case where one party would agree on a specific future price or a price range, and that would allow a hedge against price movements. However, forwards can only do so much and no more. So I'm really not certain.
David, have you been monitoring the oil prices?
No, I've been monitoring them, and they basically crashed. Coming from 2014 around those times, it's crashed from 100 to less, about 20 now. And even as Theodore highlighted, it's pretty interesting even to the rationale, because even though they said they use WTI as the mechanism to adjust prices, they are very sticky when it comes to going down. It's really odd. Like as you said, when they're going up, no hesitation to adjust the prices. But when they're coming down, it's a different story. Like even when GCT was reduced on Wednesday, a lot of companies still did not adjust their GCT to 15%. So, and as you said as well, SCT from fuel is a big contributor to the government's revenue. And even JPS has said right now that they wanted a reduction on their tax or to reduce the fuel tax on the bills to alleviate the consumers, considering that everybody's at home right now, schools are closed, and other entities that used to consume a large amount of electricity are not in operation. So even though most of JPS customers are retail customers like you and I, we contribute a small estimate to the revenue.
Right.
Manufacturers and the big entities, they contribute a significant amount as it relates to revenue for them. So
you know what's interesting too? I heard the opposition and JPS both calling on the government to remove the SCT from fuel so that we can have cheaper gas prices and cheaper electricity. But I didn't hear the similar call for Petrojam to reduce its prices in line with where the world oil prices are.
KALILAH, there's another point which I need to add to that. Recall it is that JPS is moving away from oil towards gas, and I don't, to the extent that they are in the process of doing that, gas prices have also fallen off significantly, and I don't know to what extent it has passed through to JPS prices, but assuming that it does, we're likely to see some adjustment there, given how it is that, we're a build. But to the extent that they still have those gas-powered plants and they're taking gas from Petrojam, I know that there are arrangements in place between JPS and Petrojam. I don't know the exact price mechanism that they're using, but on the gas side, it is highly probable that we will see some pass-through effect. So, prices should adjust somewhat, but not necessarily at the same rate as what we have seen regarding oil price going downwards.
Interesting discussion, gentlemen. Thanks for joining me.
thanks again, KALILAH.
Thanks much.
Anytime, KALILAH.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Let's take our final break. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Proven Wealth and Jamaica Money Market Brokers. That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share with a friend. Also, check out my other features, Money Mondays JA, Money Moves JA, and What's in It for Me. And follow me on Instagram and Twitter at KALILAH Ray. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. And tell a friend about Taking Stock. Investing is the new sexy, so let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm KALILAH Reynolds. Stay safe.